Well, good morning, everyone. Actually, good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 o'clock here in the great state of Alabama. I don't know where you guys are from, but hopefully everybody's having a great day. So we're going to start today with talking about the um, Electrolux / Frigidaire gallery oven. I actually have this oven in my home. I used to work for uh, Electrolux / Frigidaire. Um, and I just wanted to say I really like this oven. Like I said, I have this oven in my home. It's a great oven. Mine has air fry. I would tell you that is a great thing to have is air fry. We're not going to go over that. We're going to go over the more general aspects of the oven. As you can see, it's a CG, excuse me, ES3065 oven. Okay, so let's jump right in. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's back up just 1 second. I can't start without plugging Encompass. I wanted to thank Encompass for everything that they've done for me. They are a great company. It's great for them to sponsor me to bring you all of these virtual presentations. I also am privileged to sometimes go and do the presentations. Excuse me, at the Lawrenceville office, and several of the presentations I have done for other groups. I just wanted to say thank you to Encompass. I wanted to also tell you a little bit about their Easy Stop program. If you have never used the Easy Stop program, I want you to make sure that you at least don't do nothing but go and take a look at the Easy Stop program. There are several places that you can actually do that. One of the places that you can do it is you can go to YouTube, type in Easy Stock, and you'll find several programs there for Easy Stock. You can upload or download the program and look at it, and it will actually walk you through, watch the program, and you can actually see exactly what Easy Stock does. So basically, I'm going to throw Easy Stock into a nutshell. Basically, Easy Stock is a stock management system for you. As a technician, I wish that I had this. You have to remember that whenever I first started as a technician, we were on a beeper. There was no such thing as a cell phone. So we've come a long way in the past 50 years. So I started whenever I was 18, and I had just graduated high school in 1978. So I wish that I had this whenever I was a technician, because it's very easy to lose parts. You got them in your truck somewhere, but how much time am I wasting hunting for parts? I can tell you that I had basically separated everything into washer dryer. I had one shelf was washer dryer, one shelf was refrigerator, freezer, one shelf was microwave, and then at the company that I worked for, we also had my ice maker parts. So you got that, but you don't really know exactly where it is. One of the things that Easy Stock does is you can actually locate a bin, and it will give you the bin location that your stuff is in. And as long as you take care of your stuff and you know exactly that you put them in the box, you don't spend a lot of time a lot of time hunting for parts. The other thing Easy Stock will do is you can set a quantity number, and it will actually order for you if something happens and you're running low. So that's a great thing that we could do. There's nothing worse than showing up at a customer's home and going, I know that I had that part, and you look for it, you can't find it. So you have to tell the customer, ma'am, I'm sorry, but I don't have that part. I'm gonna have to order that part and come back. If I have to order the part and come back, I make no money. Okay, so let's make sure that you at least have some type of management system for your parts. The other thing that you can do with Easy Stock, if I order a part from one of the other parts houses, I can actually scan that part into the Easy Stock program, and I can actually label it and put it where it needs to go. Not only that, but if let's say that I have let's say that I have a part that I don't necessarily always have on my truck. Let's say that I keep my gauges at the shop. I can actually log them in, and if I have more than one technician, I know where those gauges are. So for me, it's a great thing, and it's a great system. So thank you, Encompass, and it doesn't cost you anything. That's the main thing, is $0 out of your pocket. It's not a subscription. It's not anything else. Easy Stock will take care of you and let you know exactly where you're at. Okay. So our CGES 3065 oven. Okay. Here's some of the built-in features. Okay. Electronic oven control with kitchen timer. Okay. The electronic element control with digital displays. That's number 2. Number 3 is your keep warm zone. You go through this list, and you're just going to keep going. Your left front element, your left rear element is shown right there. Your right rear, your right front. The element in the indicator light just tells you that the element should be operating. If something happens, it also will tell you if the element is hot still. The one that I have actually has induction cooking. So if I see a hot element, I have a problem. That tells me right there that I have a problem, and I need to pay attention to that as a technician to figure out why. Okay. The other thing is there is a cooktop indicator light. Okay. That's the one that comes on that tells you that it's hot. Okay. So if you look right here, okay, number 10 is the oven door light switch. Okay. If you look at the very top on the left, that's the oven door light, just like it is on 99 times out of 100. Okay. The number 11 is the self clean latch. Then number 12 is a vent. Number 13 is the oven interior light. My oven interior light is actually a halogen, and we're going to get through that in just a little bit. So hang on just a second. I'm going to scroll down. Nope, it looks like okay. If anybody has any questions, type them into the comments, and I'll try to answer them as we go along. Okay. The adjustable interior oven rack is right there, and that's number 17. The door handle is number 18. Number 19 is the door, the wide door. I like the door in this oven. And number 20 is the storage drawer. Basically, it's the same in most of your ovens nowadays. Okay, there is your this one. These are 80 radiant elements. Okay, then you have, if you look through 22 is the keep warm radiant element. So that's the one that doesn't have a lot of BTUs to it. The 6-inch single radiant element is number 23. Number 24 is your 6 or your 9 double radiant element. Then the 9 to 12 is 25. And then we have the number 26 is the ceramic top. So we're just going to keep rolling along, and we're going to keep going. Okay. So if you have a minute there, I want you to type in. So what feature causes you the most issues whenever you're repairing? Okay. Is it the board? Is the element replacement? Is the radiant element replacement? I'm sorry. The second one is the element replacement. That'd be for the either your bake or your boil element, then the radiant element replacement, or your oven light. Okay. Mine always, as a technician, was my radiant elements. Like I said, mine at the house, I have induction in mine, the induction cooking, which is not covered in this actual one, but that was always my most difficult thing to replace was my induction cooking element. So if you have, okay, I totally agree with that. Oh, yours is is just the element replacement. So we're going to get through the element replacement. If you guys hang on to the very end, we'll know. We'll go through the element replacement. Okay. So let's go, and we're gonna talk about talk about saving the customer. Calls you and wants to know, hey, I have a problem. So I want to save my favorites, but I can't remember how to do it. 9 times out of 10, they either don't get the manual that is supposed to be left with them. So there's some things that you will probably need to retain into your memory banks. Okay. But to save a favorite in a cooking thing, first I'm going to press the bake. The default temperature will appear in the display. Then I'm going to enter the temperature that you want. Okay. So if I want 450 degrees, I'm going to type in 450, and then I'm going to press start. Then I'm going to press bake time. Okay. I'm going to enter that time into it. And then, which is, how long you're going to have to bake it. In this example, it would be 30 minutes. Then I'm going to press start. After I do that, I'm going to press and hold my favorites key for 3 seconds. Then you're going to get a little heart icon. Okay. That will confirm that your setting has been saved. Okay. The bake press recipe will start, and you don't need to do anything else. It will just, you'll have to, all you'll have to do is whenever it stops, open the door and get it all done. Okay. So one of the other things, one of the things that I used to have problems getting customers to understand is the meat probe. Okay. It wasn't necessarily the meat probe itself that gave me all of my issues. It was the customer understanding some very simple rules for the meat probe. Okay. So do not use kitchen utensils to pull the probe or the cable handles. Okay. What they mean is a lot of times people will grab the meat probe, and they'll pull the meat probe out, and then they'll open the door, and they'll use that like I'm trying to think, like a pair of tongs to pull it out, and that can actually damage the meat probe. So you don't want to do that. Okay. Always use the hot pot holder to pull it out. That way you don't have any issues. Okay. So the placement of the meat probe. This is where I always had the problems. Okay. This one happens to be a bone-in ribeye. Okay. So I have a bone-in ribeye, and I'm trying to set it because I'm gonna bake this probably somewhere at 375 to 400, and I want to make sure that I've got the right temperature in the meat probe. So where am I going to insert the meat probe? Okay. One, I'm going to put it in the center of the roast that I have. Okay. And I'm also going to make sure that I don't push it all the way down, because if it comes in contact with the bone, it's not going to have a correct reading. Okay. So insert the probe so that the probe tip rests inside the center of the thickest part of the meat. Okay. For best results, do not allow the probe temperature sensor to contact the bone, fat, gristle, or cookware. You'd be surprised how the customer will actually push it all the way through the piece of meat, especially if I'm dealing in like a pork loin. That will cause the problem of touching the pan, and then you get a not a clear reading. Okay, so insert the probe into the food. Place the probe food in the desired oven rack. Then I'm going to slide it into the oven. I'm going to plug the connector into the probe all the way so that the probe receptacle, while the oven is still cool, the receptacle is located in the upper left-hand corner of the oven. Okay. So if you look whenever you open the door, if you look on the left side, that's where that oven probe is located. Okay. When the probe is set, an acceptable tone will sound. The probe icon will illuminate, and then the actual probe temperature appears on the display. Once it does that, I'm going to close the door. Okay. So it doesn't start with the actual temperature of the meat. Okay. It'll actually start at 70 degrees. That's where it'll start. And your meat, if you don't have it sitting on a counter coming to room temperature, it may be 50 degrees, it may be 40 degrees. It all depends on how long you have had that sitting on the countertop. Okay, everybody knows that you cook better if you don't just pull it right straight out of the refrigerator and shove it into the oven and start it, right? Okay. Then which features do you have the most problem with the customer getting them to understand? Mine was always understanding the meat probe. Convection baking is an issue. Baking sometimes. I actually had a customer that had problems. I used to work for Viking for a while. And I had a customer that was a chef that thought that he knew everything, but he was trying to bake cookies with his kids. And his complaint was they never come out right. So I had to make the trip to Mississippi. I went in. I always, whenever I'm going to go somewhere, if I'm going to have a problem and I know the problem is something like it's not baking properly, I always stop by the store, because I always had a cooler with me, stop by the store, pick myself up a roll of easy cookies. Chocolate chip is fine. Sugar cookies are fine. And then I would get to the customer's house. I always kept a baking sheet, but the easiest thing to do is to ask the customer for their baking sheet. That way they say, "Oh, well, it was your baking sheet." So if you use their baking sheet, of course you have to clean it, but you can put all the stuff in. I put it into the oven. I had already preset the temperature for the oven. It had come on. It clicked off, letting me know that it had reached the proper temperature. And then I put it in for 17 minutes, which is what it was on the cookie sheet, the cookie dough recipe that was on the roll of cookies dough. I had it all set, put it in the oven, turned the timer, watched my clock. 17 minutes came by, the timer went off. I pulled it out, I set it up on top of the oven, closed the oven door, turned it off, and this chef was going to debate me about what he did wrong, about what I did wrong. And I was like, well, that's the reason I did it with a cookie dough from Pillsbury. it's the exact same temperature every single time. Your problem is you open the door. You have to get people to understand every time you open the door, you let the heat out. You will actually cause a souffle to fall if you open the door and then close it back, especially if you let it, if it slips out of your hand and slaps the door, you'll actually makes the souffle fall. I had that happen several times. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. I am going I don't have the I would have to think about that information for the dryer. Send me an email and I'll answer your question. Number one, tell me what type of dryer it is. Okay. So we're going to continue with our cooking class here. So as we move along, okay, we got to get, sometimes you have to recalibrate the oven. That's what I was actually scared I was going to have to do. Okay. So how do I recalibrate this oven? Okay. So the temperature in the oven is preset at the factory. Okay. It comes from the factory, and whenever it's delivered to the house, they're supposed to check the oven and make sure that it at least cycles on and off like it's supposed to. Does the install team do that? I would tell you 99 times out of 100, no, they don't. I have walked behind an install crew and literally said, you guys, you're not going to get paid for this. You didn't even check the oven to make sure that the oven worked. Oh yeah, we checked it. No, you didn't, because all the plastic and everything else is still inside the oven. So I know that you didn't check it. So a lot of the times that's whenever everything comes missing. Okay. So, but anyway, so the temperature comes from the factory with it preset. Depending on the install crew, banging it up and down the stairs can also cause the temperature to come out of alignment. Okay. So when first using the oven, okay, be sure that you follow the recipe times and the temperatures that are required. You will actually be surprised at the people that think, well, you know what? If I take and jump the temperature up 20 degrees, I'll make it cook faster. No, it throws everything out of whack whenever you're trying to do a recipe, okay? If you think the oven is cooking too hot or too cool for the temperature you select, you can adjust the actual oven temperature to be more or less than what is displayed, okay? So as a technician, you have to know this information because you're going to calibrate ovens a lot. I actually had an oven calibrator that hooked on the back onto my multimeter that was for temperature, and I would plug it in, clip it to one of the racks right in the center, and I would have that oven calibrator on. I would see that what temperature it was, and I would make my adjustments. I will tell you that the worst thing you can do, and my sister and my dad used to have a little oven thing that tells you what the temperature was. The problem is, the more, if you use those, all they are is a spring. The more you use them, that spring flexes and flexes and flexes, and sooner or later it's not accurate. So you can actually buy a meter that you can plug in and you can find it out. Some of the guys have started using an infrared probe. I don't like an infrared spray. using the dot, I don't think that it's accurate either. So I always was very particular about my oven calibration to make sure that I was correct. Okay, so before adjusting, test the temperature by using a temperature setting higher or lower than the recommended temperature. Baking results should help you decide how much of an adjustment you need. If I have that meter, I know exactly what adjustments I have to make, and I don't even need to do that. Okay. Like I said, sooner or later, you're going to have to calibrate an oven. Okay. So how do I make it so the temperature is high? Okay. I'm going to press bake for 6 seconds. UPO 0 will appear in the display. Okay. I will increase the temperature using the numbers to decide the desired change. For example, for 30 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm going to press 30. The temperature may be increased as much as 35. You can't get any higher than 35 degrees. If it's any higher than 35 degrees, you're going to have to either replace the thermostat, or you're going to have to replace the board, depending on which one is the problem. Okay. After you do that, you're going to press start, and it will accept the temperature change in the display, and it will turn back to the time of day. Once I get done, I'll press off to reject the change if it's not right. Okay. Let's say that I need to drop it. I need to drop it 30 degrees. Okay. So I'm going to press the bake for 6 seconds. I'm going to wait for UPO 0 to appear in the display. To decrease the temperature, use the number keys to enter the desired change. Then press self-clean. After you press the self-clean, okay, the temperature will be decreased as you have decreased the temperature. Okay, so if you go back to the other one, the other slide, so if I want to increase the temperature, okay, all I do is put the temperature in. Okay, once I do that, it will press start, and it accepts my temperature. Okay, if I'm going to decrease the temperature, I have to get the UPO, press the bake for 6 seconds. UPO appears in the display. I put the numbers in that I want to decrease it, but instead of just hitting the start, I have to press self-clean. Self-clean is what tells the oven, okay, I need to take it down 30 degrees. Okay. Once I do that, now I can press start. At that point, it will now accept temperature change to decrease the oven temperature. Okay. I press off to reject if that's not the right temperature. Like if you wanted it instead of 30, you wanted it 25. You could press off and it would just go back. Okay. To break, we don't have a lot of problems with having the Sabbath mode. You do in larger cities have people that have the Sabbath mode that they want put into their oven, so that because in the Jewish faith they can't do anything on depending on which type of Jewish person there. The Hasidic Jews, they don't do anything from basically 5 o'clock p.m. until on Friday till I think it's 8 o'clock on Sunday. So that's their Sabbath. So if I am of the Jewish faith and I need to have my unit programmed so that I can have the bake activated, okay? What I'm going to do is to set the clock is set to the correct time of day, okay? I'm going to press I'm going to place the food in the oven. Press bake 350 appears in the display. Press start. The actual oven temperature appears in the display. If you desire to set the oven control to bake time or delayed bake, do so at this time. If not, skip the step and continue to step 5. Okay. Step 5, for delay start instructions, see setting the delay start on page 3 to 9 in the manual. Then the bake time instructions for setting the bake time on page 3 to 8. Remember that the oven will turn off after using the bake time or the delay start, and may only be used once during the Sabbath Jewish holidays. The maximum bake time is 5 hours and 59 minutes. Okay, so the oven will turn on. Press and hold the bake time and the delay start key for at least 3 seconds. SAB will appear in the display. Once SAB appears on the display, the unit controls will no longer beep or display any other changes. Okay, the oven is properly set for the Sabbath feature. The oven may be turned off at any time by pressing the off. This will turn the oven off only. Okay. To turn off the Sabbath mode feature, I will press and hold the bake time and the delay start keys for at least 3 seconds. SAB will appear in the display. Okay. Once it appears in the display, it has canceled the SAB mode. Okay. One of the things that you have to be careful of, there is a warmer drawer on some of the models. The one that I bought had this warmer drawer. I love this warmer drawer. Okay. The purpose of the warmer drawer is to keep hot cooking foods at serving temperatures. Examples are vegetables, gravies, meats, casseroles, biscuits, rolls, and pastries. It is not recommended to heat cold food in the warmer drawer. Always start with hot food. The warmer drawer may be used to warm dinner plates. Okay. All food placed in the warmer drawer should be covered with a lid or aluminum foil to maintain quality. What will happen is this feature in the warmer drawer will actually keep the food at about 200 degrees. That's the max that you can adjust it. I think you can adjust it down to 100 degrees. But it would be like if I were to put, let's say, if I took a loaf of bread and just threw it in there, a lot of the times it'll be hot enough. That element actually is a cow rod element, and it will actually melt the cellophane on a bread wrapper. But if I'm keeping plates warm, that's not what I use it for. I use it to keep my casseroles warm if I'm doing other things in the oven, or maybe I need to keep the bread in the casserole warm while I cook the turkey for dinner. That will keep it warm and it won't dry it out too bad. It's actually I really like that. Like I said, people talk about this one says you can keep your plates warm. Well, I don't want my plate at 150 degrees, but if I'm going to do that, I'm definitely not going to I'm not going to cover it with a lid. Okay. So let's talk about warmer drawer recommended food settings. So if I got bacon and hamburgers, I'm going to put it on the high setting. If I'm going to have poultry or pork chops that I have in there that I'm trying to maintain, high. Fried foods and pizza, high. Gravies, casseroles, vegetables, eggs, roast like a beef, lamb, or pork. Biscuits, hard rolls are all at medium. Soft rolls and dinner plates, low. So the one that I use at the house, I actually keep my my casseroles and my rolls, because I use soft rolls, and I just keep them at a low, and to me it's okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the key once after entering the desired temperature using the numeric keys. The minimum setting is 140. The maximum is 210. I was wrong. It's 210. Okay. The default setting is 170. Okay. So I press start to accept the target temperature. I'm going to set for quick preheat, bake, convect oven, convect roast, convection. If necessary, I can adjust the temperature accordingly. Okay. The control will provide 3 beeps whenever it's done. It will automatically display HLD in the display, and the actual probe temperature will alternate in the display. Warm will be maintained for the oven temperature at 170 degrees for 3 hours unless you cancel it. Okay. To stop the cooking, all I have to do is press off, and it will stop it. Okay. For bone-in lamb, okay, ham, I'm going to insert my probe into the deepest portion of that, okay? For a meatloaf or casseroles, I actually don't use that for a casserole or a meatloaf. I've got my own recipe for meatloaf, and I know exactly how long it takes. And if it doesn't, then I have a problem, and I'm looking at my oven trying to figure out what's not right. Okay. When cooking fish, insert the meat probe just above the gill. This would be a whole fish. This would not be a fillet of fish. Okay. For whole poultry or turkey, insert the meat probe, okay, into the thickest part of the inner thigh, just below the leg. Why would you insert it there? Does anybody have any idea why you would insert it at that point? Somebody take a guess. Okay. The answer to this question is the piece of meat that always is slower to cook is the thigh drumstick portion of the meat. Okay. So in poultry, or if I had a duck, a goose, that's where I would insert it. If you notice right here, it's showing right here at the thigh, and it pushes right straight in. There's actually a blow up of it right there. So you want to make sure that that's where it is in the thickest part of the thigh. Okay. To set the oven temperature, when the probe reaches the target temperature, the oven set is preset to automatically stop cooking and start the warm feature when the probe sensor reaches the target temperature. If this may be set to the cooking if desired. Okay. Setting the options once the probe reaches target temperature must be done when the oven is inactive. The probe is not required to be connected to the receptacle when using the option. So if I'm going to do this and I'm going to cook a lamb, a turkey, anything like that, and I'm going to use this probe sensor, I'm going to do everything I'm going to do before I ever plug it in. If you looked at the instructions that we talked about in the very beginning, it told you to not start it with the oven probe already inserted. Okay. If you think back to the class at the beginning of the class, once you insert that meat probe and it's proper, you get those 3 beeps telling you that it's proper, and then you get the meat the indication in the oven that you're using the meats probe. Okay, to set the oven to continue cooking after reaching the target temperature. Okay, when press and hold the probe key for 6 seconds. Press the self clean and toggle until continue INU is in the display. Then I'm going to press the start to accept. Okay, and the probe temperature will continue cook. Okay, to set the oven automatically to stop cooking once the start warm has reached the temperature. I'm going to press and hold the probe key for 6 seconds. I'm going to press the self-clean key, toggle to the cancel as it appears. Whenever it's going to show in figure 29, which is down below, is that. Then press start to accept it. So the cancel will be in the display just like it shows. Okay. The probe setting is set to cancel the cooking once it reaches that temperature. What is that? Why do you do that? Well, I don't know about you, but I don't like my meat crispy. If I'm going to have a piece of beef, or if I'm going to have a piece of lamb, I don't want it so that it is hard and cooked all the way through, so that especially if it's beef, I won't like my beef rare. So I want that done. So if you look right here, ground meat and beef mixtures, beef liver, beef, pork, veal, and lamb, 160 degrees is well done. Okay. Turkey and chicken is 165 degrees. Okay. If I want my beef, turkey, veal, or lamb medium rare, it's 145 degrees. That is incorrect for the, okay, medium rare is correct. The medium is 160. If it's well done, it's 170. Okay, that's all for beef, veal, and lamb. Okay, if I'm going to use poultry, okay, if I'm going to do a whole turkey or a whole chicken, I want it at 165 degrees. Okay, if I'm going to do it whole, you have to remember, where am I going to put that probe? If I'm going to use that probe, I'm going to slide it into the back of the thigh all the way through, so that I don't come in any contact with the bone. Okay, so if I'm going to do poultry wings or poultry breast or roast, 165 degrees. Duck and goose, 165. Stuffing, cooked alone or in a bird. I don't like cooking my stuffing in a bird. Some people love it. I'm a little squeamish about that. I've often seen many people that I haven't seen them. I have heard of people that have gotten sick from cooking the stuffing inside the bird, and they did it improperly. So I'm a little squeamish when it comes to that. I want to make sure that my stuffing is done properly, or my dressing, depending on if you're from the north or from the south. Okay, fresh pork is 160. Ham. So if my ham is raw, I want it at 160. Okay, if it's pre-cooked, that would be one of these spiral-sized hams that you buy that's already pre-cooked. Some of the hams that you can buy in the grocery store are also pre-cooked. You want that at 140 degrees. Why you would cook eggs with a meat thermometer, I have no idea. Okay, you have to cook until the yolk and the white are firm. That goes without saying. I mean, really? Egg dishes, 160 degrees. If I'm going to do leftovers or casseroles, it's 165. I don't do egg dishes, and I don't do casseroles with a meat probe. Okay, let's move on. So the probe too hot message. When the message "probe too hot" flashes on the display, the probe temperature has exceeded 250 degrees. Okay. If the meat probe is not removed, this message continues until the sensor reaches 300 degrees or higher. The oven will automatically turn off. Be sure that the probe sensor is fully covered by the food. If it's not, you may get that issue. Okay. So you want to make sure that the probe is in the food all the way in, and that it's not touching like the pan or the bone. Okay. One of the things that as a technician that you really need to know and how to do it properly and everything else, you want to make sure if I'm going to have to remove the oven door, okay, well, I need to know how to do that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the oven door all the way. Okay. Pull the door hinge locks on both sides, the left and the right, down from the oven frame completely towards the oven door. A tool such as a small flat-bladed screwdriver may be required. It depends on you. If you have fingernails, sometimes you don't need them. I don't have any fingernails, so I use the screwdriver. Close the door approximately 10 degrees from the door frame. Lift the oven door, and the hinge arms over the roller that are on both sides of the oven frame. I'm going to show you a picture of exactly how that happens. Okay. So right here, that's your door hinge location, left and right. Okay. Where is the lock and the unlock? So the lock is where I push it all the way down. If you look at the very top where that finger is, that is actually always in the oven. So it's always there. So you have to get behind that to be able to push it down. You're going to push it all the way down. Whenever I push it all the way down, I'm going to raise it up that 10 degrees, and then I'm going to start to pick up on it. Whenever that does, I have to pull that out now over the rollers. Okay. And then at that time, I can now remove the oven door safely. If you don't do it correctly, what will happen is the hinge will actually pop back, and you can't. It's an act of Congress to get the door to open back up. Okay, so there's the roller pin that I'm showing you right there. See it, and then the door hinge arm. That's how you have to lift up and over. That's why I told you have to lift up and over. Okay, so I'm going to have to lift up and over at that 10-degree position. Okay, so then I can set the door down. If I'm going to reinstall it, all I do is reverse the situation. Okay, if you look right there on the left side where the hinge arm is showing, you'll see what you're doing for to lock the door hinge in place. Okay, so if I'm going to reinstall it, I have to do the exact opposite of what I did. I have to actually push it in, lift it up, push it in, let it set down, lock into place. I'm going to pull the door down all the way. At that point, I can raise that arm up that locks it into place. I'm going to do that and push both sides up. Okay, then I can open and close the door freely. Okay, now, like I said, mine is a halogen light. Okay, I like it, but what's the issue with a halogen? If you touch the halogen bulb with your hand, the oil from your hands will actually cause the light to blow. So you cannot get. If I'm going to replace a halogen bulb at all, doesn't matter what kind of light it is, I have to wear a pair of gloves. Okay. And I use just a pair of rubber gloves like people use at any restaurant. the doctor's office, any of those. As a matter of fact, I used to get mine from the doctor. I would give him money for him, and he would actually get to do them. I would tell you, I found now that I can buy those gloves that are. I have an allergic reaction to latex, so they have to buy non-latex gloves. But I can buy those at Harbor Freight, and they're like $7 for, I think it's 100 pair. So they're not expensive at all. Okay. Do not allow your fingers to touch the new bulb when replacing it. It will shorten the life of the bulb. Use paper towel or cotton glove. I don't do that. I use the rubber glove type to handle the bulb, and I've never had any problems with that. Okay. So I'm going to turn the electrical power off. I can either turn the power off. I can move the oven out. However you want to do it. Okay. It's what works best for you. So I'm going to turn the power off to it. Okay. I'm going to remove the interior light shield by pulling the light straight out. Don't twist or turn, because if you don't pull it right straight out and you twist it or turn it, you can actually break the glass. Okay. I'm going to replace the bulb with the new T4 halogen 25 watt bulb. Then whenever I get done, I'm just going to reverse it. I'm going to push that interior light shield back in. I'm going to turn the power on. Then I'm going to check it, make sure that it works. Okay. So right there is a picture of the oven and the light shield. Okay. So one thing that you have to remember is you have to reset the clock if you've unplugged the oven or had it powered interrupted to it. Okay. So this is the electronic oven control. As you can well see, there is a J3, there is a P2 connector, there's a J2 connector, there's a P12 connector, a P11 connector, and then a J3 connector. Okay. So these are my connections that go into my board. So if I'm going to look for certain things, I have to figure out what pins I need to go to. So while we're talking about pins, I had a technician ask me, "Hey, listen, I can't get my probe for my meter in there. How do you do it? How do I get it so that I can get a reading?" Okay, you've basically got two different options. You can do the poor man's way, and I'll tell you that I prefer not to do the poor man's way, but I can take a safety pin. I'm going to need two because I'm going to check the power and the neutral. So I'm going to go between whichever pin, insert that into the pin, into that connector. I'm going to then go to the other side. I'm going to find the neutral and insert that into the connector. Okay. It cannot be sitting side by side. If you do, you run the risk of blowing the board. But that by doing that, sticking those two safety pins in there, you can actually check your meter leads. That's the poor man's way. The rich man's way, or the way that I have basically three sets of these because I have three different meters and they each took a little different thing. So what you do is, it is a long design just for checking pins on a connector. Okay. So I'm going to put those over my meter leads, and now I can check them very easily. Okay. So let's look at our connectors. There's your J8 connector. That's my meat probe connector. Okay. If you look at if you look at the pin on the far left, that's your ground. The meat probe is pin 3. Then I have ground for the third one over. That's pin 2, and then pin 1 is the meat probe. Okay. So my J8 connectors, that's your warmers. So your warmer zone is 1 is normal, is your power, and 2 on the left is your normally closed, and that would go between those two. Okay. My J3 connectors, self-explanatory. That's your J3 connectors. Okay. I've got my P11 connectors. You need to know these because you don't want to guess wrong and end up blowing a board up. Okay. So this is the basic oven wiring schematic. Okay. So if I'm going to check the temperature probe, where would I place my leads? Okay. The answer is incorrect. The answer was actually number 4, and it didn't show up. Because if you look at this, I'm going to go between pin number 1 and pin number 2 for my temperature probe. Okay. And the options are pin number 1 and pin number 3 on the P11 plug, or I can go between pin number 1 and pin number 4 on the P11 plug, and that's your door switch. You don't want that. Then I can, if I go between the 1 and 3 on the pin 12 connector, which is just below that, that's not right either. So the answer was actually D. Okay. If I was to be checking, what would I be checking if I went between pin number 5 on the control board and the neutral? Okay. So if I go to pin number 5, okay. You know what I didn't tell you is I did not tell you at all that it was supposed to be the pin number 4, number 5 was actually for the fan. So that one is I'm sorry, I did that incorrectly. That was bad on mine. I was a little hurried last couple of days ago. Okay. So here it is right here. It would be the fan motor on pin number 5. Okay. So to check the normal thermal cutout, where would you place your leads? Okay. So if I'm looking for the thermal cutout, okay, where would that be? PT1 or P1, okay? And then where's my neutral going to be? Would be P3. Okay. So I always bring this up because even though it's drilled in our heads, if I'm being really fast and not thinking properly, if something happens and my temperature increases, okay, what happens to my resistance? Okay. If my temperature is at 32 plus or minus 1.9, my resistance is at 1,000 plus or minus 4. Okay. If my temperature increases to, let's say 900 plus or minus 13.6, okay, my resistance increases because it's 2,697 ohms is what I'm going to read. So you have to remember that this is not necessarily exactly like it is a normal resistance whenever you're talking about if you're working on a refrigerator and you've got a temperature resistance that you're checking. The temperature decrease when the temperature decreases, the resistance increases. So it would be, instead of it being 900, would be 2,697. It would be just the opposite. It would probably be closer to almost like a 97 resistance ohms. Okay. So these are your fault codes. You're going to need these because when you go and you're trying to check this control, it will actually tell me what the problem is. So I know where to go check, and I need to check for an F10. I want to check the RTD sensor, okay? And if something happens and that RTD sensor checks incorrect, I'm going to go and I'm going to replace it. That's all I can do, okay? If I have an F11, is a shorted key. The key has been detected and pressed for a long period and will be considered a short. The key alarm will terminate all of an activity. So what happens whenever when do you normally see this? Usually somebody will, in an oven, will take and spray directly onto that keyboard a cleaning solution. That will short that key the key membrane out, and sometimes you can replace the membrane and you can work. It'll work. Some depending on what unit it is. Sometimes you can't, and they're all it's board and keyboard all together. So you're going to have to replace the whole thing, and that's something you need to be telling the customer. If you do this, you're going to continue having problems. And at a $400 board on most of these new ovens, that's not something you want to do. Okay. So if you just keep going through, okay, it'll tell you F15 is the EOC is bad. Okay. If the electronic control, if I get an F20, the control is detected a problem with a communication link. Okay, that what will happen is if you get a power surge, you can either take the board out or you can have you can get a code that shows up. Okay, if I get an F62, so I've got to replace the EOC. Okay. F90, the door motor mechanism failure. So if I've tried to put this thing into a self-clean and I get an F90, it's going to tell me that the controller is not seeing the motor rotating. So I'm going to press the cancel key. If the cancel key does not eliminate the problem, you turn off the power for 30 seconds. Once you do that, you can turn it back on. You're going to check it. If that doesn't work, I'm going to check the motor wiring to make sure that it all is plugged in properly and that there's not a loose connection. Okay. I'm going to check the motor lock switch then. Okay. You have to, because if the motor is failed, you're gonna have to check it, and you're gonna have to replace it. That is not a fun task, is replacing one of these door locking motor mechanisms. Okay. So if I have to replace that, if the motor doesn't rotate, I'm going to have to replace it. Okay. A bad EEPROM, self-test failure is an EO15. Okay. So here's our circuit analysis. What this is telling you is that on the relay board, here's the points that I'm going to look for, and I'm going to find the P9, the P7, the P11, the J3 through 5 should all be closed. The L11 out is a P1. The cooling fan, J2 and 3, both of those are the closed. So you're going to need this matrix to keep to know where I'm going to be looking for what should be what should have power, what should not have power. Okay. Control console. Components with a control console is the electronic oven control, which is what we had already said is an EOC. Okay. The electronic service element control interface board is an ESEC-BIB. Okay. The control rotary switches, I'm going to check all of those. Okay. Now, how do I get to all that? Okay. Not on this one, but on 9 times out of 10 on your ovens. Okay. We're going to slide the range forward. I'm going to move about 8 inches out, pull it out about 8 inches. The first thing that I'm going to tell you before I do anything with this oven, okay, I am going to put down floor protection. If you don't put down floor protection, you're going to scratch a floor sooner or later, and there is no excuse. Somebody's going to buy a floor, and that's not a good thing. Whenever I ran a repair facility, I had a guy scratch a floor that was irreplaceable. It was barn wood. So that one cost me about that. The insurance adjuster had to go out. I couldn't even deal with it, and it cost them a bunch of money for us. As a matter of fact, we almost lost our insurance because of it. That's because, I hate to put it, the guy was stupid. He knew better. The first thing that I'll drill into a technician's mind, always use floor protection. That's number one. Number two, if I see something, okay, before I do anything else, I notify the customer. I write it down on my ticket, make a notation on your ticket, and I take a picture of that. Okay. So I have now covered myself because I had a kid that actually I thought had done that, and I was wrong. It was the customer. He came to me and said, "Oh, no, sir. Take a look at this." And I even notated it on my ticket right here that the customer signed. So I called the customer and I was like, I don't remember the customer's name, Mrs. Jones. I have proof right here, positive, that my technician did not damage anything. You signed the ticket saying that the floor was damaged. And I have a picture before he even worked on the unit. So I'm sorry, but there's nothing that I can do for you. So that's your manager, and that's one of the jobs that your manager is going to have to deal with. Okay. But you as a technician, it's your responsibility to make sure that you have floor protection. If I see anything, a nick in the floor, if I see a gouge in the floor, if I see a scratch on the floor or on the countertop, I am going to notate that on my ticket, take a picture of it, and then I've got it as proof positive that didn't happen. Okay. So I've now slid my range out about 8 inches. Okay. I'm going to remove the 4 hex head screws, 2 on each side, securing the split trim panels to the side of the range. Then slide the trim panel forward and up to remove. Okay. So here's what I'm talking about. So bang, bang, I'm showing you pictures of it right there. Okay. Now, to remove the control panel, okay, if you have to look, this was a folded picture, is the only way to get that information in here. So I'm going to remove the control panel surface by removing the 4 screws, 1 on each of the corners, and then 2 on the bottom down there. Okay. Then I'm going to pull forward and down on the control panel to remove it. Okay. At that point, I can disconnect the 4 Molenex connectors that we've already been through what those 4 Molenex connectors are. One connector has actually 2 of them only have 2 connectors in them. One is the meat probe, and one is the door switch. No, anyway. So I'm going to remove the 8 screws, securing the console to the range, 2 of them on each side, securing the 4 upper, then the 4 securing the upper trim. Okay, this is figure 45 right here. Figure 46 to access the electronic control, the EEOC, and the rotary switch. Okay, shows me right here what I'm going to do. Okay, remove screw B on each side on the hinge and the control panel up to remove the components. Okay, does anybody have any questions? We're now at a 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 43 seconds. Where can I find the probe for pin testing? Did you just see where that was? Oh, it says yes, I do. Okay, so I'm going to take it that you saw where that probe was going to be, so that you could test that. Okay, do I have any other questions? I'm sorry, what tool do I use to test it? Okay, that's going to be the tool that you're going to use to test that is going to be those pins that I told you about. The Poor Man and the other, and the one that I like, which I use. You can find those on if you want to order them through Encompass. Thank you, but go ahead and you can. Encompass has them. You can go to their parts catalog and they have them, or you can order them through Amazon.